Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late and I missed the intro too. Um, I was actually working on a video for YouTube on a complete Luminar Neo review. So all of the things that are in it now, going over all the pros and cons, and I completely lost track of time. So my apologies. Welcome to Digital Photo Mentors weekly live stream. And this week we are doing Luminar Neo. So welcome everyone. I'm just going to play the intro real quick and collect myself, and I'll be right back with Luminar Neo. Okay, let me get over here to the chat. I'm a little discombobulated, so excuse me for my disorganization today. Danny from New York, Vicky, Sheila, Daniela. Yes, I got your email, Daniela, and I'll try and show you that exporting that you want to ask me about for sizing. Hurricane Fiona, that's no good, Sheila. Batten down the hatches and stay safe over there. Deb in Alaska, Vivian, St. Louis, Richard, Marty, Kevin. Also, welcome everybody. So I'm glad you're here. Marty says I'm only 2 minutes late, so I guess that's acceptably late. Sorry about that. All right. Husband's birthday today. Well, happy birthday to him, Holly. I hope you do something special, have some cake, or do something nice for that. We had our anniversary a week and a half ago or so, so we went out for a nice dinner. But I've got some nice images from you all submitted. I've got some from the last go around, and these ones just came in. So if you see your image on the screen and you'd like me to edit this one today of what you see here, we can do that. Let me just see whose images I've got here. Let me go back here. Okay. I wish this is actually a pet peeve of mine in Luminar Neos is I can't see the full file name here. And I don't know whose image is this. So I wish that I could see the full file name. The only way for me to do that is to click over and see it in the Finder window, or I can actually open it in Bridge, which is what I'm doing on my other window. So let me get over here. Okay, let's see. All right, the eagle, that's Deb's. Okay, awesome. Beautiful eagle. And we've got a couple of portraits from Danny. Awesome as well. Kelly's ducks. I think we had some ducks from Holly previously, and Holly's fall images. Oh, this is pretty. That's very pretty. Excellent. And I hope you're all excited. If you're using Luminar Neo, we are supposed to be getting the clone and stamp tool this week, according to the roadmap and what they sent out by email the other day. I have been told that the clone and stamp tool is coming by the end of this week. So hopefully in the next 2 days, we will have an email with the clone and stamp tool. So that's good news. Let's see. Holly says I could save hers for another day. I also want to make sure that I'm doing your image in the right program. Danny says he uses Lightroom Classic, so I'm going to save yours for next week, Danny, as well as Kelly's. So I'm going to save these ones. Let's see. So Kelly's docs and Danny's, we're going to save those for next week. And let's see, we've got Daniela's, and I think you are using both Photoshop and Luminar, so I could show either. So let's do one of Danielle's. Now, you said that you had an image of a bird. Is this the bird that you photographed, Daniela, that you said you are needing to submit to somewhere? Because you asked me by email about sizing it to a certain size, and was it under 300 kilobytes? I forget now. Let me just check my email for you. And also a reminder to submit the photos for continuing submitting photos. I've got quite a few for Luminar yet, but I need some more for Lightroom. So if you are a Lightroom user, I've got yours saved for next week. Okay, so Daniela says it's an endangered species. Okay, let me see. I've got your email here. So you need to save this as 1280 pixels on the large size, on the long side of the image, not more than 320 kilobytes. It's an endangered species. Okay, well, let's edit this guy first, and then I'll show you how to export him. How about we do that? Okay, so now that the noiseless extension is here, now if you don't have the noiseless extension, if you have purchased the package or if you have the annual or the monthly subscription now and you haven't installed it already, you can get to that from the little puzzle piece up here. You just have to click the puzzle piece and then install noiseless if you've paid for your extensions. If you haven't bought the extensions at this point and you're not sure, I would say hang on until they announce the other ones. And then my understanding is that you can buy them one by one after they're all out. Okay. So if you're not sure, I would just hang on. So once this one has been added, now you'll see that before I even do anything, there's already some edits here. Okay. So this is new. So noiseless raw and develop raw are automatically sort of added to the edits, even if you haven't done anything yet. Okay. So I'm going to start with develop raw as usual. And we don't have any camera profiles here. So I'm going to choose Adobe and see if that's any better. Now, what camera were you using here, Daniela? ARAF. So it's a Fuji, right? So it should recognize the Fuji profiles, that's interesting that it didn't. Now, I'm going to adjust the curves in this case because what can we see about this image based on the histogram? Okay, what we know from the histogram is that you could have a little more exposure going this direction to the right. Okay, so there's a blank here on the histogram, which means we can brighten it up significantly. Okay, so I'm going to use the curves tool. Rob, if you could please share the curves video, a link to the curves video. And Daniela says it's a Fuji X-T4. So that's interesting that it doesn't recognize your profiles because it does recognize mine. That's interesting. Hopefully that's something that will be updated in a future update with Luminar Neo. So I'm going to increase the whites here by dragging this part in on the graph. Okay, so this is the curve, but this part on the right is the whites. Okay, so I drag this in and it's bringing the whites up. Okay, if you want to see if there's anything clipping, so that means going off the chart, press the J key. And now I can see that I am getting some clippings, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I want to brighten him more than anything. I'm going to tone those down later. Okay. Then I'm going to bring the exposure up. Okay. So exposure, remember, is mid-tone. So see how he's brightening more now than when I was dragging up this. Okay. Let's do a balance. So it's that dance again. I do a little bit of whites, do a little bit of exposure. Then I might bring the highlights back down and I'm going to work on him separately. Okay, so for now, I'm happy with that exposure. I just want to make sure we have some good solid blacks as well. So I'm going to go down with the black until we have a little bit of clipping in the bird. Okay, so we're getting close. Okay, so we've brightened him up. It's also added a lot of contrast. Again, there's a dance, so I'm going to scale that back a little bit. And I'll probably lighten him using another method. So we can use the dodge and burn tool now that's available. And we can also use the develop tool again, which is my version of dodge and burn. Okay, I did a full version of dodge and burn hack that I had made prior to the dodge and burn tool being added to Luminar Neo. So if you could please share that one, Rob, the dodge and burn hack, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Okay, so for now, I'm happy with that. I'm going to look at color while we're here. Do we want to shift the color at all? It's a little warm, but I don't mind it. We could cool him off a little bit. Tell us more about this bird as well. I'd love to know about what kind of bird it is and where you photographed him. So I'm just adding a little bit of sharpness here in raw, and I'm going to check off these chromatic aberration and defringe just to make sure that we don't have any. Okay, I can zoom in and check, and we can see some noise as well. Right, so I could go and do some noise here, but I might save that for noiseless. Right, so I don't see any fringing here that I need to worry about, but let's just do a little bit of noise reduction here, and then I'll come back and do it in the noiseless program, in the noiseless extension. Okay, we don't need to transform this, so that's about it for develop raw. Okay. Ideally now, the next part of your workflow, if you do have noise, is to do the noiseless raw. Okay, it's recommending a low adjustment here. You could see advice, use the low adjustment. So if I click it, it's going to analyze and try and remove the noise, but keep the sharpness of the original image. That's the challenge with a lot of noise reduction software. And if you go really high with noise reduction on something like Luminar or like Lightroom, for example, or if you're using any kind of speckling or denoise in Photoshop, that blurs the image. Okay, so that's how it actually does noise reduction. So Lightroom and Photoshop don't do the best noise reduction out there. This new plugin or Topaz denoise would be the preferred methods. The On1, does anybody use On1, Photo Raw, or the On1, I can't remember what it's called, No Noise maybe, plugin, it does a really good job as well. All right, she's telling us about the bird. Let me just see that. All right. It's a small woodpecker. The idea is to make the bird very cropped. As for the website, the important thing is the bird. Okay, so we want to crop in more. Gotcha. Okay. All right, so now that it's applied it, you can see that it's zoomed in, so we can check the level of noise. So it is doing a good job removing the noise, but you could see it's keeping the sharpness on the bird. I am going to increase this a little bit, so we do a little bit more noise reduction. But if you look at the bird, he's not being unsharpened at all. So this is a good thing. I do find if you bring this detail slider up, that you end up getting the noise back again. So I keep that one a little bit lower. So that looks pretty good. Okay, cropping, she says. Okay, so let's crop way in. Let's see what Luminar thinks is a good crop. And let's come even closer than that. So I like this line of the tree that he's on. And let's see if we can use it to place him in the lower third. And at the same time, get rid of that bright spot that's back here. So I'm going to go with something maybe like that. Okay. He's not as sharp as he could be either. So we can see about sharpening him. Here, Danielle has sent me the link about the bird. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. There's the link for the bird information if anybody wants to read up about the woodpecker. So I'm going to give him a little bit of sharpness as well. So if you are using Topaz Sharpen, it does a really great job. If you don't have Topaz Sharpen, Details on the Details panel does a really good job as well. So I am going to sharpen using the Sharpen slider and keep the masking slider a little bit higher. So what that does is anywhere that is an open or large area, like these areas here that are blurry, it keeps the sharpening off of those areas. So the higher this masking slider, the less you're sharpening areas of the background like this, okay? If I go to an extreme here, let's just zoom in to 50%. Okay, if I keep the masking down but sharpening up, I start to sharpen this grain again. Okay, so the noise starts sharpening in the background. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see. My thing doesn't want to magnify. But if I keep the masking higher, is that visible? Let me zoom in one more level. Okay, now you can see it's sort of really pixelating here. Okay, can you see that? But when I take this masking slider up, see how it takes it off of this area? That's what you want to do with the masking slider, okay? And you also don't want to go all the way with sharpening. But the real trick here is the small details. So if I bring up this small details slider, watch the bird, okay? Watch his face. See how much sharper he is now? Now, granted, we are adding the noise back in again, okay? So every time we sharpen, we risk sharpening the noise or the pixelation. But look at how much sharper he is, okay? So what I'm going to do is increase the small and the medium details. And then can you guess? I'm going to mask him, right? So I'm going to use Mask AI and see if it finds him. Let's see what it thinks. I wish it would find animals. It will find flora, it will find humans, transport, um, man-made ground, and mountain, sky, and so on, architecture, but it doesn't find fauna. Okay, so I wish there was an animal search. So it's not finding him so much. Let's see what happens if I pick flora. It's going to show me the mask. Okay, so it's picking everything. So that's not going to work. All right, so I'm just going to mask it manually. Okay, so I'm going to clear the mask so it's not anywhere right now. And then I'm just going to brush it in. And I'm going to use almost 100% and just get it on him. Okay. If we take a look at what's happening now, I'll zoom back in. Okay, so the bird, watch the bird, watch the birdie. Okay, see how he's being sharpened? We got a little bit of the branch too, so maybe I'll go back here and just get the rest of the branch. Okay, so I'm gonna dial down my size. I want the size of the brush. Okay, and keep in mind this green thing is just my mouse cursor, so that's not my brush size. So I want the brush smaller than the branch. So I'm just doing like one pass. Let's see, I screwed that up. So I'll do erase. Don't want to sharpen this stuff off the branch, nor do I want to sharpen that. So about like that. But now, once I've got this one, I can copy this mask. So I'm going to go back here and copy the mask because I want to use this mask again. Okay. So now he's a little bit sharper. Let's give him a little bit of structure. Actually, let's brighten him up first. So I'm going to use my dodge and burn trick. I'm going to boost the exposure. And let's even push the whites up. Like so. This is where my mask comes in. So I'm going to paste it this time. So I only want this to apply to the bird. Let's see how that is brightening him. It's brightening the stick that he's on as well, which is fine because it kind of blends him nicer. Right? Now, if I want to go farther, I can do that. Maybe I even want to give him a little bit of contrast. So the benefit of doing this here, as opposed to the dodge and burn tool, is I can go back here and do anything that you can do in Develop. So I could even change his color. Okay, so if I want to make him warmer than the rest of the picture, I can do that. If I want to add additional sharpness to him, but not the rest of the picture. So all of these things can be done when you're using the Develop tool to dodge and burn, as opposed to the dodge and burn tool. So that's why I prefer doing it this way. Okay. Now let's add him a little bit of structure. So again, I'm going to boost it and then use the mask. So paste. So it's only on him. Okay. Then I'm going to do structure again, but I'm going to go minus. Okay. And I'm going to go extreme just so that you can see what's happening. So it's blurring, right? Use the mask again, paste, but this time I'm going to flip it, okay? So everything is going to get blurred except him and the stick, okay? Now, I've gone too far with the softening, so I'm just going to scale it back a little bit. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm softening the background. It's minimizing all of that busyness. Can you see that? And if I want to blur it even more, I just have to do this tool again. Okay. Or I could use glow or something like this. Okay, so if I want to do soft focus, let's just see. I'm looking at the background in particular. Okay, so I want to see which one is going to give me the best on the background. I'm looking to minimize these hot spots and try and tone them down. Okay, contrast, that just makes it look flat. So let's just do that. See, that makes it sort of glowy, which I'm not crazy about. Let's mask it in, of course. So paste and then invert. So see how I did one mask and now I've used it like 4 or 5 times, right? So it's really handy if you get a good mask. I'm not liking this glow so much. Let's try that. Okay, that's not bad. Still not exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a little bit more blur. Maybe Mystical will do that for me. Right, again, paste and invert. Now this time I'm actually going to copy the inverted mask because I keep inverting it. So I'm just going to copy it inverted instead. Okay, so Mystical is adding quite a bit of darkness. And we can brighten it if we want to brighten the shadows. Oh, look at that. That's toning the highlights down nicely. And we can even cool the background off, right, if we want. So that's doing actually a nice job. Another one I might try in this one is Relight. I'm not a super fan of this particular tool. I find that it's hit or miss, and I can do a better job with other tools. But let's see what happens if we try brightening the bird. Yeah, see what's happening is just brightening from the bottom up. Okay. So it's not darkening here like I wanted to. And if I increase the depth, okay, I can do it something like this, right? And darken like so, but it's really not getting me the bird. Let's try masking it. Right. That's actually not bad. Okay, so I'm using it only for the darkening part of the background, like so. So we're getting close. I still feel like he's a little bit on the dark side. Excellent idea with the mask, Daniela said. The bird is warmer in real life, but he was quite dark where he was standing. Okay, so he's a bit more like brown. Okay. And I agree. Yeah, it doesn't, in theory, it works good sometimes, but I find that more often than not, it doesn't work. So I think that one should be a work in progress, and they need to improve that tool a little bit more. Okay, so he could be warmer. We can warm him up. So I could come back to the develop tool that I did second, where I masked to him. And if we want him a little bit warmer, we can just give him a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. Is that kind of closer to his color? Now he looks a little bit more brown, like so. I would still tone the highlights down a little bit in the background. So again, we can do this. We can do contrast, minus contrast. I might do a curve here because I want to get these highlights down. And there isn't a great way of doing that with some of these tools. Paste the mask. See, now we're really starting to make him look cut out, and it's going too far. So I'm just going to dial it back a little bit. Okay, let's see how far we've come. So he was really dark, and now we've really brought him out. Did you do any better job with this one, Daniela? The fact that he's in the trees and there's so much contrast with all the branches is what's making him lost, right? I might crop him even a little bit more, but see how much of the image is already cropped, and you might want to wait for the new extension if you need to make this larger, because the new extension that's coming soon, that's called Upscale, Okay, if you go to that puzzle piece again, you can see the ones that are coming. Okay, so upscale is coming, and basically what it will do is enhance the resolution of your picture. Okay, so I'm trying to read what it says here as it's going scrolling through there. Let me wait for it to come around again. It's to AI powered tool for enhancing image resolution. Okay, so it'll allow you to sort of upsize your images. If you have, there's a Topaz one called Gigapixel, which would be similar. Okay, so let me do the export that you need to do. I would love to see your finished photo, Daniela. Yeah, please go ahead. All right, you cropped in closer than that, so let's crop them even closer then. Let's try. Actually, we could even flip them around. We could flip this. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to flip it so that it's the other way around. There we go. Let's crop them this way. So this one flips from vertical to horizontal. Let's try them this way. I like the line of the, what's happened here? There he goes. I like the line of the tree, but I think he stands out better if we crop him this way, because we get rid of a lot of that background stuff. Let's just add a vignette here and say, call it a day. Now, the issue with the vignette, right, is that because we've cropped it so much and I've cropped it down, I'm not going to be able to do a good edge vignette here. So this is something that I know Skylum is going to be working on, is what's called a post-crop vignette. Okay, so your vignette should start at the edge of the image as per your cropping. Okay, we can do that, and then if we have to, we can do another develop and just do it way darker, like so, and then mask it with a radial gradient. Okay, so if you run into that issue, this is the fix. Okay, so if you run into the issue where you've cropped your image too much and you can't vignette, do develop and then just do a radial gradient, right? So you can see my radial gradient there, and just soften it a bit, right? So something like that. All right, now she needs to export the image to 1028 pixels, 1280, pardon me, on the long side. Okay, so I'm just going to export this to my downloads. So when you are in the export dialog box, okay, so you click this guy here up in the top right corner. If you are using Luminar as a plugin for Lightroom, you will not see that. Okay, so you have to export from Lightroom. But when you get here, okay, if you don't see these options, just click options. Okay, so you can add a certain amount of sharpening, and then you could decide how you want to resize it. Okay, so you want to choose the long edge and then put in 1280, which is the size that you need. Now, the quality is where you control the size. I wish there was another piece, because in Lightroom, you can say maximum 320 kilobytes, which is what you need, but I can't do that in Luminar. So I'm kind of just going to make a guess. So I'm going to put it at 80% quality. Okay, and I'm just going to put it in my downloads and save it, and then we'll go and look at it once it's downloaded to that folder. Okay, so now I can tell you that it's in my downloads. Okay, there's the bird, and it's only 140 kilobytes. Okay, so you see how that works? So I used the size 2 long edge, and there's the bird, and then I used 80%. Okay, if I used a higher percent, it would be slightly larger, but it fits within the parameters of what you're required to send. Right, so that's all you need to do. Right? So when you get here, remember, if you don't see these things, there should be a button that says options down here. Okay, then just click that, choose long edge, type in your size, right? And if I go to 90, it's going to make me a bigger file. Okay, now if I say save, it's telling me that I already have an image with that file name. Okay, So I just need to change the file name and then export it again. Okay. So the second file that I've exported now is 187 kilobytes. Okay. So even at 90% quality, it's still under that limit that you needed to send. Okay. So there's our birdie. I hope that helps you, Daniela. And if anybody else has requirements like that, for example, if you are entering a photo contest or putting something online, right? If you're exporting for online, for example, for Facebook, you want to use 2048 pixels. That is the size that is kind of optimal. I'll just put that in here. And Rob, if you want to share a link to the older article, I did it with Luminar AI and with Lightroom, but the same options still apply when you're exporting from Neo as to social media sizing and email sizing. That's another big thing. I find that people send really big photos by email, and you want to try and avoid that. Okay. Hi, Trish. So Deb, I can do your eagle and stay on the bird theme if you like, and do that. Would you prefer me to do that in Neo, or would you like me to wait until next week and do that in Lightroom? And likewise with Kelly's ducks, we could go with a bird theme today, or if you would prefer that I wait until next week and do yours in Lightroom. Okay. John has a question. When I use the radial or linear mask, even without leaving that function, and I go into adjustments and come back, I can't access it again. Am I missing something? No, you're not missing something, John. Let me just do an example with this one here. Okay. For example, if I decide I want to do, I'm just going to do black and white. Okay. So I'm going to convert to black and white just so you can see it. Okay. So if I do a radial mask on here, for example, okay, I'm going to just do it on the flower. So the flower is in color and it fades out to black and white. Okay. And then I go back. Okay. If I choose it again, it wants me to redraw it. So you can't access the original one. But if I redraw it, yeah, it doesn't work. So there's a workaround, right? What I suggest is if you want to redo it, just clear and then fill, and then you could do it again. Okay. No, it's not working either. Yeah, I find that is a bug. It is a little bit of a bug. I have gotten it to work in the past, where if you do clear or fill, it will work, but it's not. See, now it's working. So no, you're not missing anything. It's a bit of a bug. And I find like if I remove this entirely and start over again, okay, then you can start over. And the same thing if I do a linear gradient. So if I drag it up, right, and then I come back here, but okay, I want to edit it. No, you can't edit it. Okay, so you can draw another one, right, and it adds to it, right? So I can keep adding linear gradients, but I can't edit the first one. Okay. So yes, the conclusion that you came to is delete the mask and start again, or delete the filter and start again. So no, you're not missing anything. It's a bit of a bug. It is something that has been mentioned to Skylum, and I'm hoping that comes in a future version. But while I've got this image here, I'm going to do this one for Holly. And Deb says, doesn't matter. Okay, cool. Daniela says, did I send an email to Skylum letting them know about this? I send them lots of emails. I send them lots of emails, and I often will do a video for them and send them a video. Because I'm an ambassador for Skylum, they will take my opinion and other partners into consideration when they are doing updates. The thing is that they have a lot of updates to do, and they kind of have to prioritize them as well. And I know getting the clone and stamp tool out was a major thing that they wanted to do for this next update, because people have been waiting for that one. So we'll see where it goes after this, right? But good point. Yes, I do let them know about things like this. Okay, now this is kind of a fun one. It almost reminds me of like a poinsettia or like like Christmassy colors. So I'm going to just undo the edits because it's not letting me get to raw. Okay, now I can go back. So notice that even though I had deleted the black and white filter, it was still showing in edits and it wouldn't show me the raw. So I had to go into discard it. Let me just do that again. Okay, so if I convert to black and white, and then I decide, no, I don't want it. So I didn't actually do anything. It still shows up here in edits, okay? And when I come back here, see, it doesn't say develop raw anymore, and it doesn't say noiseless raw anymore. Okay, so you have to come back here and completely trash can that black and white filter, okay? So again, that's another thing that's a little bit annoying. All right, back in raw develop. Now we have camera profiles. So let's see what landscape does for this one. See how it punches up the greens? And I have a feeling the color is a little bit off on this one. Should this flower be pink, Holly? I'm wondering if it should be pink. So I feel like the colors is too yellow. So we can go with landscape, but it feels neon to me. I'm going to go with faithful or neutral. Let's go with neutral on this one. Right? Histogram, we see nicely spread out. We don't have any whites clipping. We have blacks clipping. So that's a good histogram. I might decide I want to darken everything just a little bit. Right? And then I'm just going to pull the whites up until we get some clipping. See, it's clipping just a little bit on the flower there. And that gives us a little bit of contrast. Okay. I'm going to do the usual optics. Okay, so I do this on everything. Auto distortion. If she shot this with a wide lens, you might see the picture stretch a little bit, but I don't think it's a big deal. I feel like I'm off center. There we go. That's better. Great. I don't think it's a big deal on images like this. Okay. Don't think we need any noise reduction. I'll give it a little bit of sharpening. Okay, now I'm going to try in this color, okay? So because it's a raw file, we have all of these presets still available, right? So I can choose one of the presets, daylight, cloudy, which makes it even more yellow. The eyedropper isn't going to work because there's nothing neutral in this picture, okay? So if I click on the flower, it's going to try and neutralize the pink, and it's going to be really green, like so, okay? If I click on the leaves, it's going to do the opposite and make it really pink. Okay, remember your color wheel theory? Okay, now we got some funky color, right? So that's not so good. Let's go back to daylight. I find that the way it was actually pretty good as shot, but I almost want to see if there's maybe too much yellow still. Yeah, I feel like it should be pink, more like that, right? Notice the more pink we go, the neutralizes the green. Okay, so these are what's called complementary colors. Here, let me find my color wheel. Hey, does anybody know what complementary colors are? Does anybody want to describe that while I'm looking for it here on my computer? What is a complementary color? I'm going to find the color wheel. If you took the Luminar Neo course with me, then you will know because you have access to the color wheel. Okay, here we go. Rob says they're nice to each other. Very nice. Wrong spelling, Rob, but good idea. So complementary, not complimentary. So complementary colors are opposite on this color wheel. Okay, this is a star, but you get the idea. There's different versions of color wheels. If you want a true color wheel, right, there's a color wheel, right? So either way, when you're looking at these things, the colors that are opposite, so magenta and green, which is what we have in the floral picture, okay? So opposite colors attract, right? But they also cancel each other out in pictures like this, right? So when you add magenta, it's canceling out the green, okay? When you add green, it's canceling out the magenta, okay? And that's how white balance works. Okay? So I do find that this one is off color. So that is looking better, okay? Now that I've adjusted that, I think I might want to go back and look at the curve and give it a little bit more white now. So notice how it kind of flattened it out. It's clipping up here, but I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to tone that down another way. Okay, so there's Develop Raw. Okay, now what do you know about using the tools inside of any photo editing software? So regardless of whether you're using Neo or Lightroom or On One or something else, use the tools to enhance your picture. Okay, you want to bring out the subject. Now the light here is hitting these leaves up on the top. You can see the sunlight, and these ones are all in shadow. So we want to minimize these leaves and bring the subject out more. Okay, we can do that a few different ways. Like we did with the bird, we want to brighten the subject and darken the rest. We could sharpen the subject and blur the rest, but it kind of wouldn't make sense here, okay, because depth of field would cover all of this whole scene. You can also work with the light as well by darkening this corner here, okay? So we're going to go, did we already do Develop Raw? Yes, we did Develop Raw, and it's still telling me Develop Raw. That's interesting. But we're going to do a vignette first. So I'm going to darken it. And my trick with a vignette is to bring the feather all the way down, then adjust your size and your shape, position it. Right? I want to darken this top corner more than anything. So I might even make this a little bit bigger. And then put the feather up high and adjust the amount. Okay, so you don't want to do vignettes that look like that. Okay, this is not realistic. Even something like that is not realistic. Okay, you want to make it as soft as possible and as gentle as possible. So something like that. But I still want to darken this upper corner again. So I'm going to go back to Develop and do my dodge and burn trick. Okay. Let me just use dodge and burn actually, and I'll show you the difference, because I find that when you use dodge and burn, two things happen. You have to be really careful and use the strength really low. Like I usually dial it down to about 10, regardless of whether I'm darkening or lightening, and do it little by little. So you have to build it up as opposed to trying to paint with, 30% strength or higher. Okay, because even if I do at 30, watch what happens. Okay, so I've got a soft brush, but if I paint here, it becomes really obvious really quickly. So I'm just going to undo that and do it softer. So I'm going to start with it at 10%, and I'm just going to go on the bright bits, okay, really gently. So you kind of have to take a little more time doing it. But the other thing that I found when you're using this dodge and burn tool is that it tends to change the color too much. I find when I'm doing it with Develop, it doesn't as much, right? But you also notice it's bringing out all this texture too, okay? So I'm just going to turn that one off and do Develop instead with the same idea, but we're going to darken the exposure, but I can also bring down the highlights, okay? Bring down the contrast at the same time, okay? I wish I could blur, but I can't. That's not an option. Now when I go in and paint it in, I'm just going to do the same thing. So lower my brush strength to about 20% to start, and then just do that same area, right, around the flower, and just do it one at a time. So I kind of do one pass and then do another pass. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Now that I've got it painted in where I want it, right, then I can go back and do some more adjustments if I want to go even darker. So see what this is doing? For me, the difference with the dodge and burn tool was it was making the color more pronounced, right? And here, if I want, I can bring the saturation, there we are, down a little bit, okay? It's also making these leaves a little bit yellow, so I can shift the color. These are things you can't do with the dodge and burn tool, right? So I'm going to apply it once. Then I'm going to crop, and we're going to apply darkening again. So let's see what Luminar thinks for cropping. Again, it usually picks a good amount to crop, but not where. Because I want these flowers to end up sort of in this third here, okay? So either top third or bottom third. Let's come in a little bit more. Something like that, right? I like the idea of all the negative space around them, but there's too much green. So this is what's called visual mass. When you have so much green and a little bit of pink, the pink will stand out because it's a warm color as opposed to a cool color, right? If we go back to our color wheel here, right? Let me close this one. Okay, these are the warm colors on this side, and these are the cool colors. So violet, blue, cyan, and green are the cool colors. Magenta, red, orange, and yellow are the warm colors. Okay, so magenta is going to stand out the flower more than the green, right? But the volume of green is overtaking it because it's so big. That's called visual mass, right? Ah, upper light corner for sun rays. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Catherine, good to see you. Daniela asked me, did you create different camera profiles for my Fuji profiles? Some programs allow us to make our own. No, I didn't. Mine just show up for my X-T3, and that's what I'm saying. It's possible that Luminar just doesn't have the profiles for the X-T4. It should. Make sure that you're using the current version of Luminar Neo and check on their website. I can check on Skylam's site as to what current profiles they or what cameras they support, but make sure that you're using the current version. If I go in here and do check for updates, I'm at version 1.3.1. So make sure you're on that, and it says I'm up to date. And we should have another update in a couple of days. So if you are up to date and you still don't have it, after this next one, see if it's not updated and send a message to Skylam, right? Their email is support@skylam.com, and ask them about support for your camera. Sure, you can explain it to them in Spanish or to me. John says, complementary colors are the opposite hues on the color wheel. Yes, in the most basic form, they are one primary color and the secondary color that is created by mixing the other two primaries. Good one. Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. So if you are looking at blue, no, that's not the case, John, because if that was the case, then green would be over here, because blue and yellow are opposite, but yellow is not created by mixing red and green, if that makes sense, or by mixing red and blue. So I think that doesn't quite work. Yeah, that doesn't quite work, because the primary colors in color theory are different. Like for paint, are different than for photography, because in photography it's red, green, and blue. So if that's what you mean, then perhaps colors of light. Yes, then you're correct. John's asking about, are you shooting a Fuji X-T4 as well? So let's just do a quick Google here. Luminar Neo camera profiles or camera support. So if we just look for that, it would be on there, either in the manual. I'm looking on the manual right now, and it does support, for the full list of cameras, see supported cameras, and it's a PDF. Okay, so this is on the McFun site. Oh my goodness. It's a big, long thing. So let me pull it up on the screen here, and we'll scroll down to Fuji. So it's a PDF. Lots of Canon. There we go. Okay, so Fuji X-T1. Now it does say uncompressed and lossless compressed only. So it should, but that's a good question. It seems like there is an exception to that one. So possibly it's not fully supporting the X-T4. Good question. Great questions today. No, I think if you are talking about red, green, and blue as the primary colors, John, then it does work, right? But if you mix red and green together, it doesn't make yellow. I don't believe it. Light doesn't work that way. Yeah, it doesn't work the same. I don't think. All right, let's continue with our flower here. So now I want to do all of the same things we did with the bird. I want to give a little bit of structure, right, to the flower, but not to the leaves. So the easiest way to mask this one is a radial gradient. For the most part, a circle, but I'm going to make it a bit more oval. And if you want to change the fade, okay, you can just grab the outer circle, okay, make it a little bigger. So I'm going to give it, I'll let it fade out so it gets the flower and a little bit of the leaves around it. Okay. Now keep in mind that where the red is, that's where this tool is going to apply. So I want to invert it, right? So that it is applying to the flower. Okay. I can copy this mask as well, because then I could actually apply it again and blur the green leaves out a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Okay, if I soften them, I don't want to go too far. Let's just soften them a little bit, paste the mask in, invert it. So now the mask is on the leaves and it's just softening them. Okay, so see that subtle difference. Let me go back 2 steps here in the history. Okay, so this is before I applied the structure. Take a look at the flowers and the leaves. And then after both structures applied. So now, because the flowers are sharper and have a bit more structure and contrast, they're standing out more again. Okay. I'm going to go to color harmony on this one because color harmony works really well with opposite colors like this. So color contrast, this particular slider here, okay, look what it does. When we are on red or magenta, it adds contrast to that and darkens the greens. Okay, that's the extreme. If we go the other way, you could see if I go on the green area, okay, it's going to give contrast to green and darken the opposite color. So when you have complementary colors, color harmony is a great place to go. Okay. Brilliance in this case is kind of like saturation. Right? Then we can actually warm up the warm colors. And in this case, it's picking up both the green and the pink. Like so. So I'm kind of feeling a LUT might be good on this one. So let's go to mood. If you have the base LUTs, then if you haven't got my freebie contact sheet, if you could please share a link to that, Rob. I made a contact sheet for the default LUTs that come with Luminar. Did I open it? No. Okay, hang on. I made a default LUT contact sheet. Okay, so if you want to have a preview of the LUTs, you can download this cheat sheet and have a look. So let me just fit it on here. And let me just close bridge because it doesn't want to close. There we go. Oops. Apparently I lost it. There we go. Okay, so here are the LUTs. So what kind of look do you think might work on this flowers? This one here has a lot of magenta blue. This one's kind of interesting. Ooh, this one might be actually interesting. I've rarely used Color Punch Cold, but that might be kind of interesting. So this is where you get to play, right? So I'm not sure where I want to take this image, but I'm going to say, let's play with a LUT. And if you're going to play around, I dial up the amount before I choose it, okay? Because then you'll have a better idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, so when it's down here at 30%, it only gives you a taste, a small taste. That's kind of neat. Let's see what else we had. Maybe we go warm instead. Okay, Auckland is really yellow. I know that one. That's another one that I rarely use, but the right image might look good with it. Again, yeah, really yellow. Not so much. This is also something that we used to be able to just hover over and see a preview. And they've said that at some point that will be back as well. I'm not sure if that's coming with this update, but I do miss having a preview. Let's see. Cena, maybe Cena. Does anybody have favorites? I have a few favorite LUTs that I often use. Ooh, that one's kind of interesting. See how it's kind of making a matte almost. It's doing some interesting things with the pink. See that? It's kind of making an interesting color. You can also, because you can mask these, right? We could apply one LUT on the leaves and a completely different one on the flower. Okay, so if I want to go sepia, right, now the leaves are becoming sepia tone, like so. And then I could just mask out the flowers, mask out the pink flowers. I'm still not happy with that. Let's see what else. Does anybody have a favorite? Hitting the like button. Yes, thank you very much. Always, if you're enjoying the video today, please hit the like button. Ooh, let's try one of these faded out ones. Let's try 1950, 1960. Actually, that's kind of neat, actually. Which makes me think, well, maybe we don't need to do it this way. We can just do matte. So I'm going to come back over here and try matte instead. So I'm just going to do a fade. And look what that does. It fades out the dark areas, and it really makes that flower stand out. That's kind of cool, actually. It gives it a much softer look. And I think I'm just going to finish this one. Oops, my favorites got closed. With my favorite mystical. Actually, that is nice. And maybe one more vignette. So I'm going to vignette darker again. Right, remember the size, roundness, choose the subject. Because we cropped, I can't make it any smaller than that, so I'm going to go with that. Change the amount, and then fade it. Okay. So let's see our before. Oops, I have to actually be in Luminar to work that. So let's see our before and after. So I kind of went for a little more pastel, soft, faded look and brought out the pink flowers that way, right? Yeah, it is kind of a ways to go LUT by LUT, wondering if it worked, but I kind of have my favorites that I use a lot. So you get to know the ones that you use often. And if you don't already have my contact sheet, just download that from the link that Rob posted above. And then you can just look at the sheet. It's not perfect. I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't show a preview with your image, right? But it will give you an idea of what that LUT potentially is going to do on your image, right? And if you purchased additional LUTs, I also made a contact sheet for the Land of Freedom, which was the ones that they made a while ago to support Ukraine. So I made a cheat sheet for that one as well. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, Bakersfield might actually look good on this, right? So remember I said you can still go back and add a second one. So now I'm going to add Bakersfield and see what that does. That's kind of cool too. Right? So you can layer your moods or your LUTs that way, right? Remember, you can mask it into part or just one on top of the other. Awesome. All right. So what do you guys think about that edit? Do we like it? It's a little bit softer, moodier. Okay. So I really wanted to bring the pink flower out. So always keep your goal in mind. What is it that you want the viewer to see? And how do you use the tools to do that? Okay. And Deb said she's okay with doing hers. Let's see whose landscape is that? Trish. I think that's yours, right? Is this your landscape, Trish? See, this is why I can't see the file. Is this yours as well, Deb? That's Deb's as well. Maybe we'll do landscape. Would you like us to do the landscape or the eagle? What do you guys think? Landscape or, ooh, I know what I'm going to do with this one, Deb. I'm going to do this one because Rob's taking steaks out for supper. Okay, I'm going to do this one, Deb, because I have an idea with this one. I did a video on the HDR merge, and one of the things that I tested with it was single image HDR. Okay. And one thing that I found it to be really good at is doing that on a high contrast image like this. Okay. Because we've got sort of the issue with the sky where it's really bright. I'm going to pull this through HDR merge, just that one image, and let's see what happens. Okay. So while we're doing that, I will find the video for you on single image HDR. Here it is. Rob is working on steaks. Okay, so there's a video if you want to watch on single image HDR. So now that it's come through the extension, it puts it into a folder that Luminar creates called HDR merge, and then we can just edit from there. So it's not a raw file anymore, but look at the amount of detail that it pulled out of there, right? Couple things. I see some dust spots. So let's try the erase tool and use the automated remove dust spots. But look at that sky. We didn't have to replace the sky. It's there. The detail is there. And the amount of detail that Luminar pulled out with the HDR merge is insane. It's absolutely insane. Okay, so dust spots removed. Yeah, it got them. All right, now, you know, to be honest, I can actually try a preset even if we wanted to. Now, keep in mind that if you apply a preset, it undoes or overwrites all of your other edits. So it would overwrite the erase that I just did, but not HDR merge, okay, because this is a new image. So it overwrites everything else. So let's see what it's suggesting. Okay, we can try sunset. Ooh, a little over the top. One thing that I wish they would see, the spots are back. One thing I wish they would bring back that was in Luminar AI is the slider. Okay, so when you apply a preset, you can actually dial it down a certain percentage, and that's not available anymore. So I wish they would bring that back. That one's not bad. One thing I do find is that it's made everything super sort of almost overly crunchy, right? It's overly detailed. So I don't mind that one. So let's see what it's doing. If you pick a preset that you like, you can edit it from there, right? Let's see. No, I still think that one was the best one. So the one that we just had, I'm going to go with for a stream. So once you apply it, right, you can still edit it. And anything that the preset has done is now in the edits section here, right? So I'm going to go back to erase and just remove the dust spots again. Now it should be pretty quick because it already analyzed it once, right? But it's got to do it again. Okay. It's thinking. What I want to do with editing here and adjusting what happened with the preset, there's a few things that I see. Okay, the sky is overdone. Okay, this blue here is becoming really unnatural, so I want to tone that down. And like I said, everything in the scene looks extra crunchy. I can't describe it any other way other than it just looks crunchy. And when everything is so super highly detailed, your eye has nowhere to go. Okay, so your eye won't fall on the subject or where you want it to go. Okay. Okay, now we've got our erase tool done. So I'm just going to go one by one in here and go back to the bottom and see what it is that it's actually doing. Okay, so it looks like here it's only applied some smart contrast. Right, we could actually warm the image up a little bit. Okay, that's going to help. And I think that's, oh, it's also applied a curve. So that's interesting. Okay, so part of the preset was it applied a curve. You see that? So if you're not sure what it's doing, I'm just checking all of these things to see what is it doing. Now, I did notice that there is a fringe. Can you see this green outline here? Okay, so that might be chromatic aberration, but this auto defringe, can you see that it took care of that? Let me just move it here. Look at the top of the ridge of the mountains. Can you see that green outline? That's what defringe did. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit of denoise here. And that's about it on here. Okay, now it's applied structure. Okay, and as I said, I was already feeling like it was too structured. Okay, so I am going to mask this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a radial gradient because I only want this structure to apply in this foreground area. Okay, so remember when you drag a circle, it's on the outside. Okay, so if you want it to apply inside, you have to invert it. Okay, so I only want sort of these parts of the image sharpened because eventually I'm going to have everybody drawn to this stream and this rock. Okay. Okay, so now we're only adding structure. Okay, if I take it to the max, you can see what happens. Okay, do you see what I mean by it looks too crunchy? Okay, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like there's too many edges of things. Okay, so we don't want to take it too far. Right. I am going to copy this mask. Okay. I'm going to come back to that one because I might use it again. Okay. Now we're on Accent AI. So what is Accent AI doing? I have to wait for it to catch up here. As I'm going up here, these are all the things that the preset did, remember? So as I'm going up the ladder here, right? I'm still waiting for it to catch up. There we go. It's only applying. No, still hasn't caught up yet. I had some issues with my computer last week. It was overheating on me, so I'm very concerned about running too many things at once. So I tend to close programs that I'm not using. So I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to close this one because my poor computer is overtaxed. There we go. Okay, so it is, see what it's doing? It's doing that troublesome thing on the sky. So I'm going to dial that sky enhancer almost all the way down. And if I'm going to use this one, it is punching some things up nicely, but I'm just going to do it a little bit more subtly. Landscape. Okay, this one, it's adding some golden hour. Dehaze, that's also going to be adding to that crunchiness. So I'm going to dial the dehaze down. As you can see, if I take these two extremes, you can see what they're doing. And this is how I figure out if I'm going to use something or not. Right? Actually, foliage is not bad. I'm just going to dial it more this way. Right? You can actually make it fall colors because I find the green is usually too neon. Okay? So if we want it to look like fall, that's kind of nice. Okay, look at how dehaze is doing on the sky, and I don't really want it to apply that on the sky. So I'm going to leave that down. Now color, what is it doing? There's nothing done here, but it's played with some hues, and it looks like it's played with some saturation, and it's played with some luminance. So let's see, right? It's adding to that issue in the sky. So I'm going to make sure it's not darkening the blues. I'm going to make sure that it's not saturating the blues. And probably even shifting this color because it's done some weird color shifts here. Now, if I want to bring the foliage out a little bit more. If anything, I'm going to desaturate the blue. There we go. That's a little bit better. I like to go sort of opposite directions with yellow and green. And look at what that does on the grass. Okay, so grass and moss has a lot of yellow in it. So I could darken it and then just brighten the green bits or the red bits. Or I could darken the green and the red bits and brighten the yellow bits. Okay. So by doing that, I can really sort of change the contrast in the hills. See that? Let's see a before and after here. See how that's affecting the color in the foliage, the moss? All right, now we've got color harmony, and it's done a little bit of brilliance, so I'm actually going to dial that down. And it's doing some stuff here with warmth and cool. But let's see what happens if we go again in here with the yellows and the greens. Okay. Take things to extreme. Don't be afraid to play and see what they do. I'm actually solving some of that blue sky issue this way. Okay. And then it's got a vignette on the edge and then my erase. So I'm still not done with this one because I want to use the custom dodge and burn technique that I demonstrated in the Luminar Neo course. If you are in my Luminar Neo course, this is a technique that is a little more advanced, right? And I demonstrate how to use the develop tool to dodge and burn, but to take it to the next degree so that you're not just darkening bits. Okay, so burning is darkening and dodging is lightening, but you're actually creating tones of light in the image. Because now that this has come through the HDR module, it's actually kind of flat. Okay, so there isn't any strong direction of lighting here. So I'm going to go and create some. Okay. Let's go to develop, and I'm going to do plus exposure. Maybe not quite that much, and plus highlights. Okay. And I'm going to mask, and I'm going to paint, right? Now, if you use the paint brush, the first time you click on the image, everything will disappear like nothing is applying. This is normal, okay? Because what you're doing is you're painting in to the spots where you want it to apply. If I use erase, right? And remember, they've changed the brush now, so it shows a minus sign for erase. And if I click X, it now shows a plus sign. Okay, so plus is paint, minus is erase. If I start with erase, it's going to assume I want it everywhere except the place where I click. Okay, watch how that happens. I'm going to do paint. Okay, and I'm just going to do paint at 100% with a big brush so you could see where it's going to go. Okay, ready? Okay. So see where it's brightening and highlights only in that circle. Okay, so where I painted, it's applying. Okay. And I'm just going to clear it and start again. Okay, so now I want to paint with a much smaller brush and lower strength, maybe somewhere around 20. And I want to start creating highlights on things. Okay, so I'm going to paint the top of this rock and just do tops of things. And I would zoom in to do this a little better. I'm going to get this water here. So I'm lightening the water a little bit. And then try and follow, for example, the contour of the hill. Okay, because see these contours here of the hill? So I'm making these little indentations a little brighter. I guess they're lichens, right? Same thing here, okay? So again, I would zoom in a lot closer and do a smaller brush. I'm just trying to get the ridges of the mountains like so, okay? And then once I do this, I'm going to do the same thing with a darken. Okay. So I'm literally creating texture that wasn't there. Okay. Let's do one more sweep here. And the beautiful thing is, of course, we can come back at any time and edit it. So if I don't like what I've done, I can adjust it or I can do more. So now I'm going to apply it. Then I'm going to do develop again. And this time, ooh, that makes a big difference, doesn't it? I darkened everywhere. I actually kind of like that. I actually like that. I think I want to just darken the whole picture now. That made a huge difference. Let's go back down here and make sure we have some blacks. I'm just going to give it some more black. Look at that. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm just going to apply an overall darkening here, and then I'm going to come back and do it again. Okay, so develop. Now I'm going to do what's called burning. Okay, so I'm lowering the exposure and the shadows. Then when I mask, painting in, small brush. Now I'm looking for areas to darken. Okay, so the undersides of the things that I lightened is where I want to darken. Okay. So I'm looking for the undersides of the hills or the backside on all of these little indentations of dark. Okay. Like so. And this corner here, I might even crop out, but you get the idea. Anything that I want to minimize or darken. And it's just giving overall contrast, but also local contrast. Okay, so local contrast is individual bits. Okay, I could do it on the clouds too. So let me go back before we did any of this. Okay, so that's what it looked like after erase. Then I dodged or lightened, darkened the whole image. And I'm just going to add some more darkening with this. I'm going to go more extreme. There we go. Right? See the difference? So made a huge difference. Now the neat thing about this is I could copy this. I can copy the settings from this image. Okay, so I can go to adjustments, copy when you're in the catalog. And then I'm going to come back to, where were we here? The original image. Okay, this is the original raw image. So notice we haven't touched it, okay, because we ran it through HDR. So I'm going to paste on the same adjustments. And let's see what it does. Didn't do a great deal. Oh, yeah, it did. Right, so you can see that it did like all the painting and stuff and darkened. We might want to do a slight adjustment and bring some of the sky back. So maybe I don't want this one darkening. Okay, I definitely want to bring the sky back and so on. But overall, you can still see that it did actually a decent job. Okay, and because we masked and I did painting in, it's the same image. So the painting is going to apply on this same one as well. Oh, I wonder if my erase didn't apply. Aha. See, erase doesn't come forward when you copy. So that's one of my pet peeves. Erase did not get rid of the spots. So we'll just do that again. Okay. Thanks, John. Oh, 3 a.m. Goodness. Yes. Get a good night's rest. That sounds like something I would do. No, the blue in the sky doesn't look real, and that's what I've been trying to tone down, Sheila. So I've been working on trying to get it to look a bit more realistic, right? So I've run this one through both ways just to show what you can do with the HDR module. And then I used the same settings and applied it on the original image. So you can see there's lots of detail there in the sky. It just needs to be pulled out. So have a good play around with this one, Deb. because I think there's some really cool potential here. There's lots of great colors and the scoop of the landscape and in the scene there. But try doing like what I did with the painting to get a little bit more of the highlight and shadow in the ridges of the hills and the plants and so on. Okay, because I really want people to get us a feeling of expansiveness with this one. That's what I get. Okay? So yes, the sky blue is a little bit too much. So I would again take care of that one and just be really careful that it's not going too far. Okay. So I'm just double checking all of these things that I applied. The image looks extra sharp right from the get-go. And I'm wondering why that is, because it's not being sharpened here. Yeah. Just seems like a lot of detail. Seems like a lot of detail. Okay, so I'm looking at the sky, making sure it's not going overboard. So far, we're good. And so far, we're good. So I'm just checking. Aha. Okay, so that's where the sky went a little bit wonky there. Okay, so I might just decide, okay, I don't want this one on the sky as much. So I darkened everything, but I'm going to just erase it with a big brush, sort of off this top area. Okay. Is that better? And if I don't like the blue, I can just go to the color tool again and dial the blue down, right? But I like where that's going with that one. Yeah, basically that's what you're doing, Deb. That's a great explanation and terminology for it, because if you were using a flashlight, you'd be doing the same thing, right? So you were literally painting the light in, and especially on a scene like this. You have my Luminar Neo course, right, Deb? And this is the one where I did the pocket watch and then also the boat, right? So I really brought out the highlights in the pocket watch the same way. I have that one as an example if people who do not have my course want to see it. Here's the image. Might take a minute to load it. Doesn't want me to do a before and after. And I've done the same type of technique here, right? Your live chat has died. That's interesting. Well, you're here, Trish, and I saw your question. So maybe people just aren't saying stuff. I think I'm answering some questions that maybe were older, right, as well. So there was the before and after of this watch. Okay, so can you see what I did here? Besides using the erase tool and doing a bunch of cleanup, I used the develop tool twice, right? I'm going to go back here before develop. So I used it to darken. This is minus exposure. And then lighten. And then I did a tone to give it more of a gold color and made it glow. Okay, so those are the combination of things that I used to affect this effect on the watch. Okay? Like that. Sheila just posted something for you, Trish. Do you see Sheila's comment there? We're just about to wrap up for today anyways. I think we've done a few really interesting edits. We've done Holly's flower before and after. We did Daniela's bird. He's still really dark. I still feel like he's too dark. I want to brighten this whole thing. Okay, so now that I'm looking at it after the fact, I want to make him brighter. Just seeing him sitting there in my catalog. And sometimes that's actually a great tip is if you've been looking at an image for a long time or a series of images for, an hour or something, you've been working heavy on them, come back and look at them again the next day, because you may see something different. And you also want to kind of take a step back, right? So notice how I decided that this one was too dark based on seeing it in the catalog, right? So I looked at it here and it looked too dark. Okay? I do want to work on these guys. They look super cute. We'll save them. We'll save them for next week. And we also did a couple of versions of this one. So thanks again for joining, everybody. Reminder to submit your images and to fix my crazy hair. Submit your images so that I can keep editing next week. I did put a call out on Lightroom, and I'll do the same here. What did I ask for last week, Rob? I can't remember now what I asked everybody else for. It seems like we've got a bird theme going. So if you've got any other birds, let's look for fall pictures, birds, and what else? How about water? So we've got water and birds today. And send me your fall, bird, or water pictures so that I can edit them and indicate whether you're using Luminar Neo or Lightroom as your main editor. And then I will try and demonstrate your image using the editor of your choice. Macro and spooky, Vicky said. Did I say macro and spooky? Did I? Well, macro was on the group, and I need to update the image. But for Luminar, seems like we've got a bird theme going. So, and I know Brandon's got lots of birds. So let's do birds, fall, and water. So see what you can come up with for those. Yes, my hair is crazy long, Sheila. I cut it all off last year when I was sick. Don't ever do what I do. Put your hair in a ponytail and cut it off. Not the best haircut ever. So I'm in the process of growing it out. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining in this week. We'll see you next week for Lightroom editing. Take care.